Summit and Destiny have met 7 times before. Tonight is number 8.
And the Tennessee Volunteers are the SEC Tournament Champions. It's been a long time coming. The last time Tennessee won this tournament was in 1979, but they've got another trophy to put in the trophy case at Thompson's Bowling Arena.
The 2023 SEC champions, the Tennessee Volunteers.
Hit high in the air into left field. Stevenson circling in front of the fence into foul ground. He goes into the corner, makes the catch, and that's the ball game.
And the Volunteers will hold the trophy.
How much fun is this, man? God, I love it. High fly, deep right, and Tennessee walks it off.
The 2-2 to Denton.
Well hit, deep left field, it is good!
For the win for the Volunteers. From 40. On the way, a knuckleball. He got it!
How much fun is this?
Man, Rocky Top, this is college football at its absolute best.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is a special edition of the Vol Fanatics Show with myself, Michael, my co-host, Skylar. And as you can see, we've got a guest with us tonight. This is Blake from the Up Tempo podcast. And we'll be talking about some Tennessee and Auburn baseball this weekend. But Skylar, how you doing tonight?
Dude, we're doing fantastic, brother. It's kind of weird doing a midweek podcast, but I'm all for it, brother, especially when we get to talk a little baseball right before the big series.
That's right. Blake, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great, fellas. Glad to be here. Auburn and Tennessee this weekend at Plainsman Park. We have A-Day Saturday, so the football vibes are going to be high, trying to get back to the winning ways and the winning traditions of Auburn football. So when we get done there, I'm sure everybody will walk right across the street, and we'll get ready for some baseball.
I love those weekends, man. You're going to have a lot of traffic there on campus for a spring day.
Yeah, it's going to be packed out. They've already started the parking arrangements and trying to get everything worked out because obviously Auburn, let's be straight up, it's a football school.
Yeah.
And Hugh Freeze, he wants to bring it back, you know. And Auburn's been down. We made a hire and hired a guy from Boise, Idaho, and we know how that all worked out. And it just set us years back. And obviously we live in a state where the University of Alabama has been running college football for years and years, and it just adds to the pressure, fellas. Like, Auburn can't keep losing, and I stress that a lot on my show is the cards are stacked against you right now, but there was just a change over there at their regime, and they're bringing in the DeBoer era, so now's the time if Auburn wants to make that move. So things are going to be packed at Jordan-Hare Stadium this weekend.
That's right. And without going on a tangent, one thing Auburn and Tennessee have a lot in common is the fact that you got to play Georgia and Alabama every year. And it sucks that, unfortunately, those two teams have been the top of the pinnacle of the college football world the last decade and a half. So as a Tennessee fan, we very much understand what that's like trying to get back to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get any further into this, we would like to tell you about our show sponsor. So, Skylar, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, man. Chris Smith Insurance. As a homeowner, Chris Smith was once let down by an insurance company, so he decided to start one of his own, where instead of feeling like a big company is fighting against you, you'll know that your agent is fighting for you. All insurance is not equal. Trust the Chris Smith Insurance Agency. Call 865-272-3387 for a quote. He's right here in Oak Ridge. Guys, it's good to know your insurance agent in case something bad happens. We just had some tornadoes roll through yesterday, and so I'm sure that a lot of agents and adjusters are pretty busy today, but it always is nice to have a plan, have an agent, and a friend to help you during those times.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we'll get right into just talking a little bit about Tennessee Auburn this weekend. So, Blake, Auburn this year hadn't got off to the greatest start in that they really wanted to this year. But looking at the schedule here, you guys started off against 3 of the toughest teams in the conference. I mean, you start off against Vanderbilt, turn right around and play the number 1 team in the country in Arkansas, and then you took one game out of that, and you played very close games this past weekend against Texas A&M. unfortunately couldn't pick up a win there. But I mean, Auburn is right there on the cusp of getting a win, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's been a rough start, and we were talking about the scheduling, and it's just tough to go up to Vandy, and we know what kind of program that Tim Corbin has up there, and all the success that he's had. And look, we just got blitzed that opening series. They were ready to play, and we weren't. Our pitching wasn't there. We were still trying to find our weekend rotation. The bullpen wasn't great. We actually led in all 3 games. It's crazy to even think about because we got run ruled that Friday night, and we were winning 1-0, and it didn't last long. They come up and hit a 2-run bomb in the bottom of the first. So it just hasn't come together just yet. Look, we got Arkansas at Plainsman Park in week 2, and we had a chance to win all 3 games. We had Hagen Smith on the ropes in a 1-0 game, had an opportunity with runners at second and third in the 4th inning with less than 2 outs, couldn't score, had an opportunity with the bases loaded and nobody out in the 6th and couldn't score there. And we lost that game 1-0. We come back in game 2 and we're winning, and we end up dropping it 6-5. And then we won that 3rd game, which in my opinion somewhat saved the season at that moment. I know you play 30 SEC games, but you can't afford to start 0-6. And then last week at Bluebell with A&M, that was tough, fellas. Like, it just everything that just could have went our way just didn't. The ball just didn't bounce our way, and that's baseball. It's a funny game. It's a weird game, but one thing that I gotta give a knock to Auburn is they just can't come up with the clutch hit either. We when you got guys in scoring position, you gotta get a 2-out knock. I was down in Jacksonville, Florida for the Jacks College Baseball Classic earlier this year, and when we played Virginia for the championship of that classic, that's what it come down to. They got more 2-out knocks than we did, and they beat us 6-4. We hit the long ball, and they got base hits with runners on second and third with less than 2 outs, and that's how you lose games, is when you don't have clutch, timely hitting in college baseball. And it hasn't worked out, but everybody keeps wanting to talk about the schedule, fellas, but it doesn't get any easier in this conference because you got Tennessee coming to town, and then you got Kentucky right after Tennessee. So it don't slow up anytime soon for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. But I do feel like that you've gotten most of the toughest competition out of the way. I mean, Tennessee's a good team. Kentucky is a very good team, kind of surprisingly this year. They've come out of nowhere. But then you do have Missouri down the road. They're not towards the top of the conference, but I mean, in this conference, it's definitely going to be tough regardless of who you play. So I do think that there's some room for Auburn to make a run. I'm not going to go out on a huge limb and say a World Series run like what Ole Miss did a couple years ago, but absolutely make a run towards the end of the season into the SEC tournament and put yourself in position for postseason play.
Yeah, this is my big thing with the schedule when I look at it, and getting past Tennessee is, like I said, you got Kentucky, and then you got Mississippi State, who is better than we thought, and you got to go to the dude. That's not easy at all. One of the best attitudes.
The very next series is against LSU right after that.
In Baton Rouge at the box, man. So it's like, and then Alabama, they're good this year. So it's like, it just keeps going and going. I know Ole Miss is kind of fit in there, but, it's really tough. And Auburn has got to get their pitching right. If they can't get their pitching right, I just don't see a way. You dug yourself a massive hole starting 1-8. Right. And here's the thing is, you had to pick up a game at Vandy, and you had to pick up a game last week because 3-6 looks a whole lot better than 1-8, and it didn't happen. So now, you want to get to that. You want to get to that 14 win mark, 14-16 in the SEC. Maybe 13 could possibly get you in as a 3 seed to the tournament, just of how good the conference is, but. Now you don't have many losses to play with because you're 1-8. So, and this schedule is just tough, man. It's extremely tough.
Well, I won't count you out, man. Tennessee, if you remember last year, we started out like 5-12 or 5-13 in SEC play, and then we just kind of went on a tear unlike I really never seen. I mean, obviously the team back in 2022 was insane. I think they only lost like 9 games, but still, in the way they were pretty much counted out last year, they found a way to kind of make a run. So I mean, Auburn. I mean, the biggest rule in baseball is don't get swept, and Auburn unfortunately has been swept now twice, but Arkansas is number 1 team in the nation. You found a way to win one against them. But one thing that I was looking at real quick was, other than the Vanderbilt series, which was the opening SEC series for you guys, man, Auburn puts up a fight. I mean, it's not like they lay down or anything like that. I mean, every game seems to be within a run or two or whatnot. It just, the ball's not bouncing your way. And I understand completely what that's like. And, you know, I'll be the first to admit, I think Tennessee's a little overrated this year. On top of that, we're kind of dealing with some injuries to our pitching staff, a couple of key players actually. And so I'm not overlooking Auburn at all. I know they've not started out the best. They're 1-8 in the conference, but you know, I think Tennessee has a very tall task in front of them if they even have an idea of winning the series or getting a sweep this weekend.
Well, one thing I will say about Auburn is last year we did start 5-10 in SEC play, and we had Mississippi State come to Plainsman Park. We were down. The team was fighting just like they do this year. We come back. We were down like 8-2 in like the 7th inning and come back and won that game. And that kind of turned everything around in the season. And you ended up hosting in a regional. So it can happen, but it's got to start this weekend for Auburn. I do think a big thing for Auburn with their pitching staff is their starting rotation. We had Carson Myers going on a Friday night, and he's a transfer that come in, and we had a transfer come in from JUCO with the name of Connor McBride, and he was working in the midweek early in the year, and finally Butch just finally said, "Hey, we got to get him to the weekend." He's shoving in the midweek. Carson Myers was starting to get touched up a little bit, was losing command, starting to walk some folks, and so they bring Connor McBride over. They move Chase Alsop to the day 2 starter. And then Joseph Gonzalez, who is coming off the arm injury, hasn't been himself yet this year. Hopefully he can get back to what we all know that he used to be. And so Connor coming into that Friday night spot, he gave up 1 run. He gave up a solo bomb in the first to Arkansas, and that was the only run they scored. And he did what Texas A&M. He pitched pretty well. I think he gave us almost 5 at Texas A&M. So he hasn't been terrible. And I think he gave a little life to the rotation. And you got to get that key start out of him on a Friday night because that's where it starts. You can't go down 0-1 to Tennessee at home this weekend and start. Then it looks 1-9. And eventually, do you start losing the clubhouse? That's where it goes for me. Is I know what Chase Alsop's going to give us. He's got an electric fastball. He's finding the glove a lot more this year, throwing a lot of strikes, and that was his biggest issue last year. Is he was elevating a lot of stuff, and people were making hard contact and they were hitting it out of the park. You know, in this league, even though you throw 97, 98, you leave it belt high in the SEC, and it's getting taken for a ride. So. Chase has gotten better, and like I said, Gonzo, he's just he's got to work that sinker down. If he can get that, and he can get ground balls and lazy fly balls, he can be effective. But it just hasn't been there yet for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, and I believe I saw Gonzalez. You said he's your day 3 starter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him in the game against A&M on a Sunday, and man, that was one where. Man, Auburn jumped on them early, but, you know, Texas A&M just answered right back. And, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, you think you've got all this momentum, but as soon as the other team gets it, it's like, okay, we got to keep going. And you mentioned it. There was a lot of missed opportunities. And another thing that I want to ask you is, you know, your pitching has been getting roughed up a little bit, but – do you think that your defense is also a little bit, I won't say a liability, but part of the problem, because just from my eyes on it in that game, it looked like there was a lot of plays that could have been made, and maybe it wasn't the full effort out there to make those plays defensively that resulted in some hits and then some runs eventually.
Defense has been a major problem. I'll tell you, we had a midweek game a couple weeks ago. I think we were playing Troy. And first pitch of the game, Troy, guy, he pops it up in the infield. Ball goes probably 40 feet down the line, first base line. Ike flips his mask off, goes to run down. Cooper McMurray, our first baseman, he comes down. They're both calling for it. They stop. They look at each other. The ball drops for a foul ball. A couple pitches later, guy walks. You got a runner on first, nobody out. All right, so it's stuff like that. I can tell you a play against Vanderbilt, first night of SEC play. They got runners on first and third, one out. We got Caden Green at 2B. They hit a ground ball. It kind of pulls him to his left, just a hair. He fields it, and instead of making a turn and throwing the baseball to second, he pitches it. But when he pitches it, they go to review. They say, hey, the guy at first, he's safe. He beat it out. The whole time I'm sitting here and I'm like, hey, you got to know in the back of your head, you got to drop step, turn, and make a solid throw, because when you pitch that baseball, he's running the entire time, and it's just a slow turn. And it's the little things for Auburn this year that haven't gotten right. And it's really just, look, ground balls, making throws to first. It killed us in Omaha in 2019. We're beating Mississippi State in game 1 in Omaha, and we can't make a throw to first base to advance in Omaha. It's just the little things on defense for us, and it's happening this year. We're miscommunicating on fly balls in the outfield, and it's been rough, man. Like it's not what we're accustomed to seeing with Auburn baseball, because Butch Thompson usually has it right by now, and we're usually starting to roll. So it's been a little tough to see, because I know how talented this team is. I know the transfers that he brought in and the guys that we brought back, and Bobby Pierce coming back and playing right field this year. He hasn't had the year that we thought, and hopefully he can get it going. But he's got to stop swinging at that slider down and away with 2 strikes. It's killing him every time. But the defense has got to be better, and you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Well, I mean, excuse my ignorance, but is that a lack of returning production thing? Is that a young team, or is that a bunch of transfers coming in trying to play together all at once? What's the issues you think that's translating into poor defense?
That's a good one. I can say this: our infield is a lot of transfers. We got Javon Hernandez getting run at 2B. We got Cooper Weiss at short. He's from Miami of Ohio. We got Derek Fabian getting a lot of time at 3B, the transfer from Florida. Right. So there is a lot of new faces. You know, you look out in left field, you got Mason Mainers. He come from Jacksonville State. So it is a lot of transfers, and it is a lot of new guys, new faces, and not a lot of chemistry. So that could be it. You know, we lost 2 guys on that left side of the infield that were absolute studs. And Bryson Ware and Cole Foster, and they played a lot of baseball for the Auburn Tigers, and they were clutch. And when you have that kind of turnover, things like this happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side of that, as a fan watching, you're hoping by week 4 in the SEC, slate, that you've got that chemistry built up by now. But Tennessee's kind of having to deal with that. Obviously, we have an injury in Billy Amick. And so we've had to slide, our shortstop over to like second base, substitute in a true freshman in Area Antigua, who I think's a baller, but he's kind of struggling at the plate. So we're kind of having to shuffle around, and we are making some sloppy errors, but it's not nothing out of the norm. But I was looking at the roster at Auburn, and I haven't really paid too much attention to Auburn this year, but there's a lot of names I don't recognize. Yeah. And so that's what I figure maybe could be a key role in the lack of chemistry there.
You lose guys like Case and Howell out in center field, a guy that had played at Auburn for 5 years, and he's the doubles leader, and he's just that guy in the clubhouse. He was that leader for Auburn, and losing guys like him, and you're bringing in new faces.
That's right.
That's you're moving Chris Stanfield. He's a natural center fielder, but he was playing a lot of left and right field last year, and he moves over to center this year, and I think he's done a great job. But it's just new out there. Everything's new. So hopefully this weekend can be the weekend that they kind of turn things around because, like I said, you got to go now. There ain't no more waiting around.
Exactly. You're in the middle of the SEC slate. I mean, it's time to buckle up or shut up. So, I mean, with that being said, let's get off the negative talk. I mean, who's kind of been that player or two for you on this Auburn team that's kind of actually stood out to you when maybe you either didn't expect them to or maybe they made a year 1 to year 2 jump like you didn't really expect?
Well, I'll start with this I'll start with our returning studs, and that's Ike Irish. I think he's one of the best college baseball players in the country. I think as far as a pure hitter in the game of baseball, I would draft him 10 out of 10 times. I think he gives me Juan Soto vibes up there, just his swing, his ability to use all parts of the field, never out of a count, never gets cheated, always looking to just drive the baseball to every part of the field. Doesn't matter if he's 0-2, 1-2, 3-2. Doesn't matter. He's ready to hit the baseball, and he's elevated his game, his swing this year, and he's hitting the ball with a lot more power. And I think he's at 11 home runs, 10 or 11. And so I look down at 1B and Cooper McMurray. He come back. He was the transfer from Kansas last year. He had a pretty solid year last year, but this year he's really cranked it up. He's been a clutch player for Auburn. Just keeps hitting bombs for us. Big-time guy that comes up, and when we need that hit, he's there to get us back into a game. He was a big contributor in that win against Arkansas. If it wasn't for him, we don't win that game. So we're 0-9 in conference without him. So the transfer guy that I got to preach on is Mason Manners, the left fielder from Jack State. Mason has been exceptional. This is a guy that can hit for power. He's hit clutch bombs for us this year in midweek games against games. There was a game against Austin Peay. He hit a walk-off bomb. That's a good club, by the way, too. I know y'all know all about them. That's a dang good club. Them dudes can stroke. But Mason, man, his ability to also be able to base hit bunt. He can come up and hit a ball 400 feet, and then his next AB will lay one right down the third base line on you. His ability to swipe bags, I think he does a great job in base running. He's been extremely electrifying for Auburn this year on the pads. And then his ability to play any position in the outfield for us if needed. I think he's done a really great job coming from Jack State to Auburn for us. So those three guys, and then obviously Connor McBride. When I look at the pitching staff, I think Connor McBride, I know he hasn't gotten, a ton of time just yet, but it's coming. And he's been a huge spark for this team. And if I look in the bullpen, man, that's one area where we just got to get it fixed. So, there's been a couple guys that have stepped up in that area, but the pitching just it's got to come together this weekend. So those guys right there, I've been extremely proud of.
Yeah, and the game 3 that I watched against Texas A&M, you were talking about Mason Manners there. I mean, his first at bat, he comes up, and Skylar and I, we both played high school baseball. We know how hard this is. He comes up and drag bunts one down the first baseline. He's a lefty, dragging one down the first baseline and beats it out. And I'm like, man, this dude is awesome. And then we tried it.
Kind of easy. I do it all the time. It's fine.
I mean, you might can. I sure could.
No, I'm joking.
But then he tried it again his second at bat and dang near beat that one out too. And then you mentioned, his power too. His third at bat, he gets up and flies one to deep left field that was about 10 feet short of the warning track. So I mean, I did really like seeing Ike Irish, and like you said, I do think that he is one of the best players in college baseball right now. And one of the things that keeps Auburn in games is their ability to hit the baseball, because they can go on a tear and put up runs at a premium. But then you also mentioned Mason Manners. It's not just him, but I mean, Auburn right now, they are 51 of 58 on stolen base attempts this year. And to put that in perspective, I mean, Tennessee, they're sitting at 21 of 27. So, I mean, you've got 31 more stolen bases this year than Tennessee does. I mean, the fact that you can steal those bases, you can also hit for power. I mean, you can just play any game that you want. Then that's big for the Auburn offense.
That's why I harp on the pitching staff so much.
Yeah, so it's all defense.
Yeah, that's why I harp on it, man, is because I know what this team can do offensively, and they've shown that. They just give up more than they score, and that's the frustrating thing about it is we've got the power, we've got the pop in the lineup, we've got the guys that can swipe bags, Derek Fabian, Cooper Weiss, Javon Hernandez, Caden Green, all these cats, Mason Mainers, all these cats can swipe bags. Chris Stanfield's one of the best at it in the country. I mean, there was a game last year, we try to lay down a bunt, Chris Stanfield's on first against Mississippi State, and we pop the bunt straight behind the plate, and the catcher, he just kind of gets up, going through the motions, and he's like, all right, I got it. He makes the catch, and Stanfield tags from first. And he's safe, and we're in a 1-1 game at that point. We get a knock, he comes around and scores, and we ended up beating Mississippi State that night, all because of Stanfield's just ability to know the game and tag up like that. Speed. And this team's just got to put it together because they do have the ability to put pressure on you on the pads, and they can hit it, but that's the two things that I continue to harp on, man, is the clutch hitting against Arkansas got us in those first two games. That killed us because if we could have got it, just win the series. If we could have got one more game against Arkansas and just win that series, that would go a long way. And it didn't work out, and the ball hasn't been going our way. So I do know that this offense is really, really strong, but I know the one coming to Plainsman is going to put up some runs too. So that's what worries me about this series.
Well, that is a matter of opinion because, we play at a T-ball field where, it's only about 3:20 to left. And, every time we hit bombs, it gets discredited because of how short the field is, and that's fine. But I mean, you're right. Top to bottom, Tennessee's lineup, one thing we've not lacked on in the last 4 or 5 years is power. And we tend to hit the long ball and hit it a lot. I think right now we're averaging just under 3 home runs a game. But in saying, this team tends to hit a cold spell at times, and they can't get out of their own way. Kind of a lot like the basketball team. They will get hot and score about 20 in 3 minutes, and then next thing you know, you look up and it's been 6 innings and we haven't put a run across the board. So, it's just one of those things where if Auburn can kind of figure out a way with this being at home to put some defense together, maybe have a night pitching, and then if Tennessee finds that game where they're just cold at the plate, it could be bad news for our Vols. And I really hope it doesn't happen this weekend. I love and I'm glad you joined the podcast, and I wish y'all all the best, just not this weekend. But Tennessee doesn't need to go into the series seeing a team that's 1-8 in the SEC and think that they've got an easy lock. And that's what I'm trying to say, because looking at the box scores, man, that's all I've got. Auburn's going to put up a fight. They're going to score runs. It's just a matter of can we keep up.
Well, I got to ask you guys about the Tennessee pitching staff. I know you lose Chase Burns.
That one hurt.
I know. Yeah, that stings. That's a dog right there. But what is the Tennessee pitching staff looking like, and what's Auburn going to face? Michael,
you want to take that?
So our Friday night starter is out with an injury, unfortunately, A.J. Russell. But we've got a guy that came in looking to take the Sunday spot in A.J. Causey that's just stepped right into that Friday night role, and he's just run with it. He did get roughed up against Georgia last weekend, but I mean, he's got roughed up against Georgia, man. So he has stepped in and filled that role nicely. You got Drew Beam just holding down that Saturday spot, and he's struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks. He's been hit on quite a bit, but he's still just I call him Steady Eddie out there. You pretty much know what you're going to get most of the time when he's on the mound. Sunday, you kind of been running a a little bit of a Nate Snead, Xander Sechrist type rotation right there. Just one of them will get to start, the other one's going to come in right after. The bullpen has been strong for the most part, but they have had the tendency to walk a bunch of batters this year, which is very unlike a Frank Anderson coached pitching staff. But they also have the ability to strike you out. They could come in and shut you down at any point. So I would consider the pitching staff probably a B overall. They can be good, but they can also give up a bunch of runs. So
I will say this, and it may be hindsight. You can call me a critical fan, whatever. I've actually seen this year. At the end of the day, the pitcher is responsible, but I've actually seen some coaching errors when it comes to the pitching staff. As far as sometimes we tend to leave a guy in a little bit too long when he's not got his stuff working, and it actually directly impacts like the very next bat. I can't think of the game. We were playing a game, and he kind of gave up back-to-back hits, and I don't even remember the guy's name. But it was just one of those situations where at that time you've got to pull that pitcher out. Like, clearly, they're all over him. It's not working out. Well, Tony Vitello, when he comes to the mound, it's a pitch and swap. Just so you know if you're watching the game. If Tony Vitello comes to the mound, there's going to be a change. If Frank Anderson comes out, they're just going to talk, maybe laugh, whatever, cut a joke. But anyways, he didn't call timeout. They didn't do a pitch and change. It was like the very next pitch, the dude hit like first pitch bomb, 3-run home run. And I'm just like, awesome. Like, we just lost this. It was against Alabama. I know.
I'll say it was against
Alabama, and it literally lost us the series. But I'm just like, what are we doing? And to me, that was more of a coaching era than I mean, obviously, I know the pitcher's at the end of the day responsible, but I'm not going to fault the pitcher when his stuff's not working and he's still being asked to do something. And that's what I've been seeing this year. Obviously, I don't feel like our pitching staff's near as dominant this year as it was last year. Drew Beam is kind of our ace, our Saturday starter, but even he hasn't really been at the top of his game lately. And maybe that's because he's in his third season starting. There's a lot of film on that guy out now. And even though he's trying to improve his game year in and year out, I mean, at some point, you just know what the guy's going to throw now. I mean, once you got that much film on a guy, you're doing that much studying. Even the players at Auburn that may be a second or third year player, they're playing that guy now. They know what he's about. They know what he's got. But overall, we have had some injuries, but I want to make sure and see if our coaching staff does a little bit better situationally when it comes to circumstances like that, if we make the pitch and change early enough to make sure nothing like that happens.
Can I touch on one thing about the Tennessee and Auburn baseball?
Go for it.
Fiery. So 2 years ago, we come to Knoxville and played you guys and took you to the rubber match. And do you remember the heat and the fire that went on about?
Yes.
We supposedly slung the bat to the Tennessee dugout. And
yes.
Tony, yeah. Right. So,
but Tony's a little hothead, but it's all good.
So, I hated it last year that we didn't play. Like,
yeah.
I felt like we should have played, and you guys come out on our schedule, and we were like, okay, that's awesome. And then they were like, oh, well, we got to go back and change the schedule. We messed up. And so I just felt like we should have kept it going because that would have been really, really solid for baseball. And I always have this big thing about growing college baseball. I want college baseball to
bring the eyes to the sport.
Yeah, man. I wanted to get so much love instead of watching, the cornhole championships on Friday night ESPN. I want it to be a marquee matchup college baseball game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just hate that, they kind of just swept it under the rug. And I was like, man, there was so much fire in that series. Like, why wouldn't you want to bring it back and just keep letting them play back and forth? So I do expect that type of intensity at Plainsman Park this weekend.
No, absolutely. And to your point about growing the sport, that's why in 2022, when we had that unbelievable season, we were kind of getting bashed by a lot of the media for being cocky or whatnot. But, honestly, it was just a fun brand of baseball. And they were winning. So, by all means, as a fan, I'm like, I don't care what they do. They're hitting 5 bombs a game, and they're daring you to do something about it. But it was bringing eyes to the sport. And then, we have the daddy cap, which is savage. I encourage every team to do something like that. We even have the daddy fur coat or whatever you want to call it. You got those – something to make it more exciting. Obviously, bombs are awesome. Massive pitching duels. If you're a baseball fan, that's fun to watch too. Yeah. But, NCAA, of course, always has to do something and be the no fun police. And they try to take away, the props or whatnot. And, thankfully, they've somewhat brought him back. You just have to keep it in the dugout. And they, I guess, took away bat flipping, but I don't think our team ever heard that because I promise you I've seen like 7 bat flips already this year. No, college baseball, I think, is the most popular it's been, I think, since I've watched it, which is my childhood. I mean, that's all I've ever done. And but it is nice to see it growing. But I agree with you, man. Auburn, Tennessee could be one of those big matchup, not necessarily heated. It might get that way. I mean, it's Tony Vitello. You mess with him, it's going to get there pretty quickly.
And to that point, another matchup that's not happening this year on Tennessee's schedule, you're not getting that Tennessee-Arkansas matchup. That's Tony Vitello against Dave Van Horn, and that's that marquee matchup you're looking for. And then, you guys playing Alabama, I mean, it doesn't matter what sport it is, that's going to get heated. That's something that's going to bring some eyes to baseball. So I'm with you. You need to have those marquee matchups to bring an audience to baseball that they haven't had.
Fellas, if they get us in baseball, it is going to be rough because I know y'all were watching the Iron Bowl. Y'all saw the 4th and goal from the 31.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I ain't never been so heartbroken before in my life. And then,
hang on, but was that not the most Iron Bowl moment to have in an Iron Bowl? Like,
look, we were gonna get paid back for kicks. It was coming. We couldn't keep clinging on to it, and
y'all, that game alone it could be its own highlight reel for NCAA 25. It's whenever they come out with that football game, it could literally be nothing but Iron Bowl highlights, and it would be the most dope video ever. By the way,
like people, I was doing some interviews at the Senior Bowl, and some of the people that aren't from the SEC, they were just kind of talking about like the biggest rivalries in college football and college sports, and I was like, all right, I hear the Ohio State Michigan stuff. I really do. Okay. But you have no idea. Like you don't get it. All right. Like even y'all with Tennessee, Georgia and Alabama, Tennessee and even Florida. I know y'all get hyped up for Florida, and I don't think we play Florida enough because every time
we get hyped up for Florida when they come to Neyland, not when we go to
that's
when we go to the swamp, it's just known that we're coming out with an L, brother.
Yeah, that is that Joe Milton game that killed a parlay of mine. So
you were terrible for betting on Joe Milton. Sorry,
but yeah,
family friendly here.
now you might win some money betting on Nico this year, but we'll see.
Hey, I was just about to ask you all that. What are the expectations? I know we're a little off of baseball, but I just got to ask because I know football runs the.
Well, I mean, we're in the middle of spring camp. I mean, y'all got the spring game coming up. We've got ours coming up April 13th. Michael, I'll let you take this one first, brother, because we've kind of talked about this a little bit.
My expectations this year are somewhere around 9-3, 10-2. But you ask any other Vol fan, and expectations are sky high because of how Nico performed in the bowl game against Iowa. They saw that and they're like, all right, national championship game, here we come. And I'm just like, okay, slow your roll just a little bit. Let's see what he does against some SEC teams before we go national championship hype. But, I mean, expectations are high in Knoxville right now because of the Nico hype. And then we've heard a lot of hype out of some incoming freshmen this year that are showing up in the spring ball. I mean, you got 5-star freshman Mike Matthews showing out, 4-star athlete. I think they're playing him in defensive back as well as punt returners. Boo Carter right now, he's really showing out too, along with
in-state product too.
Yeah, in-state product. Of course, we got probably the top returning rush defense coming back with James Pierce Jr., and we just added more talent there with 5-star Jordan Ross, and along with guys that are returning. So, I mean, expectations are high in Knoxville. I'm trying to keep it a little bit lower because we had it sky high last year with Joe Milton too and just got disappointed.
Okay, but to be fair, Joe Milton in garbage time was like literally Heisman Trophy worthy. Like,
that's true.
That dude is, and I still think Joe Milton was not that bad. He gets a lot of hate because of who he had to follow. Hendon Hooker was saving grace of Tennessee football, and so having to follow him, I think no matter who it was, ultimately he's going to end up looking bad unless they won a national championship. Just because when you have to follow the player that not just beat Florida but also beat Alabama for the first time in 16 seasons, that's going to be hard to do. But I guess for me, I don't want Michael looking at my FanDuel page because he's going to see Heisman Trophy odds. He's going to see a playoff and the national championship bet. It's okay. I bet responsibly. But to his point, Tennessee's just never been as healthy as they are, and they've finally built some depth. Like, look, Josh Heupel's not really put together top 5 caliber classes, but what he's been able to do for the last 4 years is put together really good classes for the position of needs, right? He doesn't necessarily need the best quarterback, in my opinion, to have a good quarterback. Josh Heupel was a quarterback himself. He knows how to coach up, and his offense, I'm not going to say it's gimmicky. I think it is really good, but it's definitely quarterback friendly if they can throw it long. Because when you've got your spread offense from sideline to sideline, a 5-yard hitch route is still 40 yards for the freaking quarterback, depending on where they are on the field. So I think just right now, they just did a complete overhaul in the secondary. And in my opinion, our weakest link on the football field was secondary. So I have to chalk that up as an improvement. So if everything stays the same, but we improve at the quarterback position with Nico, which I think is very likely, and we improve at the defensive back position, which I also think is very likely, we kept our defensive line for the most part. Our offensive line, I think we had 4 returning starters coming back. We did lose 2 heavy hitters at the running back position between Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright's a dog. But we've got Dylan Sampson, who reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara, if you remember him at his time at Tennessee. He's kind of got that twitch to him. He's hard to tackle. He's fidgety, and he's also fast. So we got Brew McCoy coming back from ankle injury, along with some other 5-star wide receiver talent, which that wide receiver talent's been drawn in because of Josh Heupel and that quarterback-friendly offense. I am that guy that thinks 10-2 should be the floor, and that's because you're chalking up an L to Georgia until you beat them, and you're probably going to lose one to Alabama or Florida or something else like that, just because you haven't been consistently good in a long time. I mean, Tennessee's ceiling before Hendon Hooker's and Josh Heupel's second year was 8-4. I mean, that was our top tier type of season. So we finally broke through with that 10-2 season, going 11-2 overall. Last year went 9-4 after the bowl win, but I'm thinking 10-2, maybe even 11-1. But overall, to your point, it's making that playoff. It's expanded. It's time to get there, and a 10-2 team in the SEC is going to get there.
Yeah, and before I turn it back to you, I got to pull this comment up. So this is Eric from the Ohio Podcast.
What's up?
And a better late than never, man. And all you gotta do is just start that video over. You can watch it from the beginning because I don't know if we could just replicate all that we've talked about so far. But appreciate you tuning in, Eric. So let me turn that around to you. What are the expectations in Auburn for this football season?
It's Hugh Freeze. It's championship or bust, bro.
To our fan base, yeah, it is. It's there's just like you guys said, there's some Auburn fans out there that are, hey, we're winning 10 games. Hugh Freeze brought in the number 8 recruiting class in the country.
Did a great job in the transfer portal as well.
Yeah, and he's gonna just flip it all around, and it's all gonna work out. And unfortunately, that's not how it works, right?
No.
It can work like that. You guys did it. You guys come out and win 10 games in year 2 under Heupel.
Should have been 11, but
But
Ole Miss. No,
that was South Carolina.
No, yeah, you're right, South Carolina.
We were just in such a bad spot in depth, and in the trenches, man. And that's what it takes to win in the league. And I'll always say that Auburn's biggest downfall was hiring a guy from Idaho that just was clueless about the Southeastern Conference. And when he got here, he just didn't care. He didn't care to recruit. Yeah. And if you do that in this league, you're going to lose. And it happened quick. And when I knew we were in trouble when Penn State walked into Jordan-Hare and they slapped us by 4.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, hey, this experiment has got to end. Okay. And, there was a lot of pushback with Hugh Freeze getting hired and everything, but it's going to take time. And I always try to tell Auburn fans, because everybody just, we hired Hugh Freeze. We lose to New Mexico State. We get blown out by New Mexico State. All right, and then everybody was just like,
that was a terrible loss. I remember that. Yeah.
It was. It was tough to watch. But everybody is, they're pushing back and they're saying, wait, is he the guy? Is he the guy? I tell Auburn fans this. Missouri come to Jordan-Hare, and Missouri fumbled out of the back of the end zone with Brian Harsin. And we ended up winning the game somehow. I mean, they missed a 23-yard field goal to win it at the end of regulation, and we ended up going into overtime, and we somehow win it. And Mizzou fans were wanting to fire Drink. They're get him out of town. It's over. The experiment is done.
Kind of wish that would have happened now, but whatever.
and now look at him. Like that's my point right there. Is it takes time, and if he can do it at Mizzou, then Hugh can do it at Auburn. Mm-hmm. But we were just so far behind everybody else. He's just not going to be able to come in year one when you're not good up front. D-line is our biggest issue, in my opinion, on defense this year. Marcus Harris, the stud that we did have, he went pro. I can't blame him. He's going to make some money in the NFL. And we had a ton of secondary guys go pro. We had DJ James go pro. Our secondary, our safeties, they're both going. Jalen Simpson, that's probably the biggest one, in my opinion, to lose back there, is because he was our guy. He struggled a little bit at corner early on in his career at Auburn. He was, struggling with man coverage, and they flip him over there to safety, and he gets to roam around a little bit and have a little fun, and he become an elite playmaker.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to be young at certain spots. And so I always tend to tell people, just slow down a little bit, because you're setting yourself up. You're sitting here and you're preaching, Auburn's going to get to 9 wins. They're going to get to 10 wins. We still got to play Alabama, and we still got to play Georgia every year. All right?
Exactly.
And I know Alabama lost Saban, but there's still a ton of blue chips.
That's still a Saban roster right now.
It's still a ton of 5 stars, all right? Ton of blue chips. Now they've got the spread, the wide open offense and everything. Look, it's still going to be a talented roster. We still got to play those cats. Now we got Oklahoma coming to Jordan-Hare. I think that's the biggest game of the Auburn season. And a lot of people, they might disagree with me, but I think you get Cal at home. You get your first 5 games at home. One of those is Cal.
That's
you should
beautiful.
beat Cal. All right? You should beat Cal. You get Arkansas at home. You should beat Arkansas.
Yeah.
All right? Then Oklahoma comes to town. All right? You got to win that game, because after that, you got to go to Athens. Let's chalk that one. All right? And then you got Missouri and Kentucky both on the road. So I think you got 5 straight home games, 3 straight on the road against Georgia, Mizzou, and Kentucky. So that's tough. All right. I don't care how you want to look at it. That's tough. So that Oklahoma game is the swing game to me. And they got Jackson Arnold coming in, and that'll be his first true test. And so I think you got to win that one if you want to be get back to 8 wins or so. I'm tired of going to the Birmingham Bowl. I'm tired of going Music City Bowl, and then when we get to the Music City Bowl, we get thumped by Maryland. So it's aggravating. It's an aggravating time for Auburn football, but I know we got to give Hugh time, because he's putting together the talent, fellas.
That's what I was going to ask you this, because I've got my opinion on it. As a fan, when he was hired, was you a fan of that hire?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
How could you not be? You're getting a proven winner in the SEC, a guy that actually was kind of an Achilles heel for Nick Saban, right? And I kind of hate that Nick Saban retired. Hugh Freeze got Nick Saban to retire. Look, you heard it. No, I'm joking. But like, you get the guy back, and I'm a big fan. I wanted Hugh Freeze at Tennessee before we got Josh Heupel because I knew Hugh Freeze was coming back.
Yep.
I guess it was just a little too soon, and then like with Tennessee going through the allegations, having to get rid of Jeremy Pruitt the way we had to save money, I guess it looked bad to then hire Hugh Freeze. Whatever. Everything happens for a reason, and I get that. But I think Hugh Freeze is the guy. I think it's only a matter of time before he can bring a ring back to Jordan Hare, back to Auburn. But I know, social media does its thing. You kind of have like mixed emotions. Why did we hire this guy? Trash all your burner phones, all those jokes, whatever. But I just wanted to know from you, like, are you a firm believer in this guy, and are you good with the hire?
Absolutely. Wanted it from day one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought when his name come about and they were serious about letting him back into the Southeastern Conference, I said, hey.
Go for it. Pull the plug.
You got to. He's going to put up points. And my biggest thing is everybody was talking about the offense. I made the point. I was like, hey, look at the guys he brought to Ole Miss to play defense.
He had a great defense.
He brought the Kimdichie brothers.
Yes.
He brought the Kimdichie brothers to Ole Miss. So, like, he was in big-time games. And it's hard to win at Ole Miss. Let's be honest. I say that on the pod all the time, and their fans will come in there and say, "Oh,
any West team, it's hard to win." You got to play LSU, you got to play Alabama. Like
it's tough.
Auburn, it is tough. But
I mean, as good as Hugh Freeze is, he never won 10 games at Ole Miss. I mean, it was Lane Kiffin that won them 10 games 2 seasons in a row. So
he should have at Ole Miss. Laquan Treadwell broke his ankle tragically.
Yeah,
going into was it against y'all?
Yeah, at the goal line.
Bo Wallace he's a family cousin of mine actually, and so like we were watching that game, and I mean the dude was in the end zone, and just God, I hate that play, bro. Yeah. But yeah, I mean I felt like Ole Miss had a real chance to not only I think they were in the playoff conversation. But that was pretty tragic. But I guess good news for you guys. Y'all got the win. But no, I wanted to say, your feelings on Hugh Freeze. Yeah. I'm trying to get to a point here. Did you feel the same way about Brian Harsin when you hired him?
No. Thought it was the worst.
And you're being honest with me. You're not saying this because of hindsight.
100%. I'll pull the Facebook post up from the night he was hired, and I said, quote for quote, when it officially got announced, I said, we have reached Vanderbilt territory.
I love that.
Don't pick on my little brother like that.
I mean, I hate it for y'all for what happened when Brian Harsin was there, but I love that quote right there.
So, but the reason why I'm asking all this, there's another program in the SEC going through this right now, and he's going to get fired this year. I'm calling it. I'm going to let you guess who you think I'm talking about.
Arkansas?
Nope.
It's
a team.
South
Carolina. Team that might beat us. Florida.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's yep.
You got Billy Napier out there from where was he? LA Tech or?
He was at Louisiana.
Lafayette. I don't know why in that realm of time, Auburn, Florida thought that they could go poach these coaches and actually turn them into something here in the SEC. But I mean, Florida, back to back 5 and 7 seasons? I think it's been 3 years now. Now, I hate admitting that because 2 of those seasons, they found a way to beat us.
Yeah.
Which is literally their championship game, I guess. But I don't see him being able to flip the script, especially at a program like Florida. Florida, I don't know how the hell he's still there. And, it's just same kind of coach. Honestly, I would lose to Florida a couple more years just to keep him there just because they're not even in the conversation at this point with him leading that program. They had some weird whack NIL thing happen with Raiola.
Jaden Rashada.
Or Rashada. Yeah, thank you. Raiola is at Georgia. But Jaden Rashada, I'm not sure what happened there, but it's just nothing, it seems to me, from an outsider looking into that program, has been smooth or looks like it's going in the upward trajectory. Like nothing about that program's looking good. In my opinion, I think he could be the next SEC head coach fired.
Now, I will say this too before Blake, you can give your point there, but I do have a little bit of sympathy towards Billy Napier for this.
Whoa,
Yeah,
Tennessee showing so.
Whoa, maybe
no, sir.
Okay,
take off that hat right now, dude.
Sympathy was the wrong word, but so Napier took over a program that Dan Mullen literally ran straight into the ground. And he is literally trying to build that thing from the ground up, and I think it's just a little bit too much for him to do, and that's why you're seeing Florida on the trajectory that they're on right now under Billy Napier.
That's a good point. The guy basically admitted that he didn't give a damn about recruiting.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, at the presser, all right, at the presser, they ask him a recruiting question. It's not recruiting season. We don't care about recruiting, all right? Buddy, look, if you ask
any other coach, there is no non-recruiting season. Like it's literally year round. Like
it's look, when I talk to other people, I took a trip in November. Bo Nix went to Oregon to play for the Ducks, right? I took a trip in November. My brother and I, we flew out there, went to Eugene, and
how
got
was
to. Oh, it was amazing.
I heard all good things about that place, man.
It is incredible. A top 10 bucket list place to go for real. For that place to only hold like 60,000 people.
That's what's crazy. But it's loud, right?
It's loud because it's built in a bowl, and it's like it's just enclosed in, and it's super small, and it's so close to the field. Incredible stuff. But like. It's like we talk to other people from fan bases, and we got the vibe of like they don't really care as much. So like once football season ends out there, it's just kind of like it's over. And so when we had conversation, they were like, "Well, what do you guys do at the end of football season?" We were like, "Man, it's recruiting season."
Yeah,
and they were like, "Recruiting season." You know, and we were like, yeah, like you got to get on the trail. You gotta follow On 3. You got to follow 247 Rivals. You got to know every kid that is in the Southeast. All right, whether he's in Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, don't matter. All right, you got to go. We go to high school football games and watch high school athletes play.
We did it last year. Yep.
We go around and we're like, hey, that guy's got an opportunity to be at Auburn. I want to go watch him play. All right. And they all looked at us and they were like, man, that's wild. Like, y'all care about it that much? And I'm just like, well, your coach, he now cares about it. Right? So you're about to find out how much recruiting means. And I think that's why Hugh was the right hires, because when they fired Harsin, fellas, we were like 62nd in recruiting. And Hugh come in and he got us all the way to the top 20. I think we finished like 18th in one and like 16th in the other. And then this year he comes in and he gets us a top 10 class. And I think that's all you can ask for. You gotta close that talent gap. And the most exciting thing is to see a 5-star wide receiver step on Auburn University's campus in Cam Coleman. Auburn, that's the position they've lacked for years. And just to see us have wide receivers and playmakers and just getting the offense going, it just feels like that's always been Auburn's problem, is we have a hell of a defense, we just struggle to score. So I'm excited, and I think every Auburn fan should be excited.
Well, and to your point about the crowd excitement, I do have to say I think a lot of that has to do with today's age and recruiting, NIL, transfer portal. It's almost like people think they can go and hire their coach, right? If they get their guy, all of a sudden in one offseason, he can basically cherry pick his roster and have the exact team that he wants to have in year one to go win ball games. Now, yes and no, but you're not going to have a championship team by any means, within 1 year or 2 years, even with all your tools around you. It's just, it's impossible. But I will say, I think as bad as I hate the transfer portal, I don't hate it. I hate how many times a kid can transfer. Like, during the course of a season, you can literally see a kid in his fourth year at his fourth school.
Yep.
I just don't like that. But that has made it easier for some of these coaches to come in, but it also puts a lot more pressure on these seasons, right? Usually you hire a new coach back in the day, not that long ago. He got 4 years.
Yep.
Immediately. I mean, the contract was no less than that. And now it's almost like you get a coach, you get 2 years, and you better be on the upward trajectory before we pull the plug already.
That's a fact. That's
So,
100%.
So I'll pull this one up here. Ohio Podcast, he says, got to run. Great job tonight. I'm looking forward to a lot more of this. And he is 100% correct with this last part. Big announcement coming in a week. Blake, you're also a part of this announcement. You know, we've kind of been teasing it some. I'm sure you guys have as well. But some big news coming next week out of college podcasting world. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah. Blake, we appreciate you joining us tonight. We got your socials here on the screen, but you want to tell the folks where everybody can find you?
Whoa. Hang on. Hold your roll, brother. I got to have some game predictions this weekend, brother.
Yeah, let's get them.
Let's get them real quick. Let's go. I'm putting you on the spot, dog. What we got? And you can be a fan. You can put on the Auburn glasses. You can say 3-0, and I'm just going to laugh at you. That's fine.
I'm going to say Auburn steals the series in a rubber match to save their season. I think they get 2 games.
That would be a much-needed bounce back.
Yeah,
right? Especially after getting swept. And
yeah.
I could actually see that. Even as a Tennessee fan, I could 100%. I'm going to say we win the series, but I think we get it 2-1. Tennessee just doesn't show me the ability to be able to sweep an opponent this year. And like you guys with the schedule, man, I think Tennessee, I looked it up. Now, Auburn kind of fell, but the preseason, Tennessee didn't have a single unranked SEC matchup to start the season. Or to the entire season. Now, of course, like I said, Auburn's kind of dropped a little bit. I think there's another team. Missouri. I was about to say Missouri, I think, is kind of falling off a little bit. But Tennessee still just, in my opinion, with the injuries, we're going to have a game where the bats are not there.
Yep.
I could absolutely see Auburn getting the win. But I'm going to take the boys in a 2-1.
I think I'm also going to take Tennessee 2-1. But, I'm with both of y'all. I can very well see Auburn stealing the series in this one 2-1. I do think Tennessee gets one regardless because they tend to have in each series one game where their bats
offensive,
the pitching is awesome, and it could possibly be a run rule game. Just throwing it out there. I mean, I think every series except for Alabama so far, there's been a run rule game, and even the Alabama one was almost a run rule. But there's also that game where the bats aren't really clicking, and I think that Auburn could still win there. And then the rubber match, I think could be a close game that I think, based on what you said earlier, Blake, that Auburn doesn't always get the timely hits when they need it. I think that's where Tennessee can steal that third game is they can get those timely hits at times, but they can also go cold with the timely hits too. So I do think Tennessee takes it 2-1.
One thing I can promise you, if we lose this series, you can count on me being pissed off, and you can also count on the Tennessee fan base coming after Tony Vitello's hit, because that's what we do when we lose around here. We just immediately, we were saying fire Rick Barnes like 2 weeks ago. It was crazy, but I'm joking. Literally every fan after the first round of the SEC tournament, it was like everybody. Because it was old March Rick Barnes. But no, I mean, that's fan base, right? That's how passionate we are. So
no doubt.
But I respect it, and I'm saying 2-1 because I'm a fan of Tennessee. I can't come on here and say that we're going 1-2. What am I talking about? But I could absolutely see it, and Auburn needs it. I think Auburn needs it way more than Tennessee needs it, right? So I think that could be a big factor.
That's the scary thing is a team needs it. They're a desperate team. They're willing to do whatever it takes. So that's why I could very well see Auburn taking the series 2-1.
Absolutely. But, brother, Blake, Up Tempo Podcast, we really do appreciate you joining on, and we really hope to do this more often down the road, maybe for the football season. I don't think we're scheduled this year.
Not this year.
But who knows? Maybe we can meet up in the SEC championship.
That would be fun.
That would be a lot more positive, take on the game, wouldn't it? That would be crazy.
Absolutely.
Hey,
no, man, we appreciate you being here.
If not the SEC championship, it's a very real possibility. Maybe the college football playoffs, depending on how
it's more likely. Yeah, more likely in the playoff than it is the SEC championship. So
absolutely.
Yep.
No, man,
Blake, thanks for joining us tonight. Skylar, you got anything else before we sign off here?
No, man, it's my bedtime, bro. It's 8:00. Come on.
Yeah. So from Skylar and myself, Blake, again, appreciate you joining us, and everybody, go Big Orange.
I'm a ball for life, y'all. I bleed orange and white, y'all. I will till I die, y'all. I'm a ball for life, yeah. Raised up on John Ward, giving 6 in the checkerboard till I'm gone.